Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Frankie's Open Mic on Frankie's Podcast Network. I'm your host, Haleigh Overseth, here with my co-host, Murray Jackson, better known as Murray Angel, Reiki Master. And today we have Edward Zia here with us. Hello, everyone.
Oh, thank you. I just got to say, Murray and Haleigh, thank you so much for putting this amazing show together. I love your opening intro. I don't know how I'm going to keep up with that level of professionalism.
I think you'll do it.
Authenticity. You just dive right into being yourself, and we'll get into some questions, get you to the forefront.
I don't think you'll have a problem with it. Effortless God of the LinkedIn sales and marketing universe, I think you'll have an easy time with just hanging out and having a good time with me and Murray Angel.
Ed, the next hour is all about royalty. You are the light. You are the spotlight. So in order to help everybody that we intend to help, you are going to be the center of attention. So we can find out the secret source of what makes Ed, Ed.
Love you guys. And girls. I mean guys in a gender-neutral sense. I love Haleigh and Murray. There we go.
We love you. We love everyone. And we so appreciate the love you have for the things you do. Tell the audience, if they don't already know, a little bit about Edward Zia and why we're so jazzed to have you here.
Oh, thank you again, Murray and Haleigh, and to our great fans around the world. So, yeah, my name's Ed. I'm a LinkedIn consultant and run a business network with wonderful Lassie, my wife. And if you look behind me, this background was actually Lassie's Ladies International Women's Day event on Friday, and that's Lassie in the center. So see the lady in white right there? That's Lassie running the show. So, yeah, we both teach LinkedIn and have a massive business network with hundreds of people and more, and we look after them and help them win big and take off in business and life.
I love that. I really do love your energy, too. I appreciate somebody who comes from LinkedIn being excited to be there. I really do.
So just to clarify on that, Ed, so you're saying most of these people are awesome themselves and they're just walking their path of leadership and life and figuring out where they go next and what's going to suit them. And so what, they come into the environment with you, and how do you catalyst that? How do you expand that frequency and that vibration and elevate that?
Yeah, great question. So in a simple way of putting it, we're more of a platform to help people achieve whatever they want to achieve in business and life. And from a LinkedIn point of view, that can include many things. It can include, let's say, I was on the phone before, me teaching them how to use LinkedIn to help them take off. It could be us promoting them in our business networking meetups, and also too as well, it can be us connecting them with high value people as well. So it's a mixture of teaching people LinkedIn plus promoting them in our massive business network. And yeah, what works really well is, much like yourself and Haleigh, we attract very amazing people. So as you can tell by Lassie's legendary event, amazing people. A lot of people will say to me, and they'll compliment me, which I appreciate. They'll say to me, Ed, my God, your event's so awesome. There's so many people here. And I'll jump in and slightly correct them, saying, thanks for the compliment. It's not about the number of people. It's about the exceptional high quality of people we're surrounded by. And that's something that makes us very happy and quite proud of.
It does matter who you surround yourself with. And we were talking just a little bit before the show about that you got to give yourself credit for surrounding yourself with awesome people. It means that you are awesome if you attract them to your frequency bandwidth. But the fact that you do have a perspective where you appreciate the quality of energy around you and not just the quantity, that does say a lot about you. And I think that's a great start to what people can understand about you and why you do have such a successful story with your LinkedIn marketing and your consulting. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that? Like, what is it that makes you want to do what you do? Why is this particular line of work, or how did you get into this, and what makes you passionate about it?
Yeah, exactly. So long story short, so back in the day, so I used to be in the Australian Army and the Australian Federal Police a long time ago, and very successful. I got injured very badly, made quite a few mistakes in life. When I was about 29 or 30, yeah, I was a homeless veteran living in my car. So I actually lost everything. I was living in my car at the age of 20. I was like a very, very successful guy in my 20s, very like six figures, nice cars and all that. And towards the end of my 20s, I totally flew like a brick, right? And lost everything. And at the time, I was actually living in my car on a beautiful beach. And so in Sydney, there's a beautiful suburb called DY. And it's a beautiful beach on you would know, someone like Murray would know, do a beautiful beach. I lived there in my car for about a year or so. And really it was a chance to I sort of got over the shame of how I got here, but it's like, where am I going to go in life? What am I going to do again? And long story short, what happened was a lot of people didn't know I was living in my car, right? Anyway, what happened was one of my really good friends there, Denise, she was talking to me and she goes, Ed, I need you. I'm running this health company. I need you to come to the Easter show and I need you to help me sell health products to the audience. And I was like, whoa, Denise, I think you got the wrong guy here. I don't know about this, Denise. And she goes, no, Ed, you're going to be great. And I said, no. And she goes, Ed, I'll pay you $500 a day. Done. Right?
Done. Sold.
Right. And what was interesting is that, and she was right, and amazing lady, Denise, right? Credit to, if she's watching, credit, love you heaps, Denise. And what happened was, including commission, I made $2,000 a day over 3 or 4 days, right? She was right. She picked me as the right guy for the job, and I made a lot of money, right? So I made about I think $6,000, $7,000 over a few days. And I'm like, so you got to remember, I've been living in my car for a while, and now I've got about $7,000. And I said, oh my God, this could be a chance to reboot my life. And so what I did was, whilst I was living in my car, I found a really, really good coaching program, right, where you can become certified as a coach. And it cost about $4,000. It was in Melbourne. It's like, I got $6,000. I can spend $4,000 on this, and I spend a bit on travel. So what was funny is I was living in my car, flying interstate to do this coaching program, living the high life. So everyone thought I was this successful, amazing guy. I was actually living in my car. I was kind of giggling all the way. I was like, he.
As well, you should, because why shouldn't you be successful and have that boxcar children experience at the same time?
Exactly. So it was kind of funny. Everyone was complimenting on how awesome and successful I was. And I'd sort of walk off giggling, like, ha, 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 I'm a loser living in my car. But anyway, but what happened was, so I did that. Then I started getting clients, and it wasn't before long that I actually became a full-time coach, but more of a marketing coach, more marketing and business, not so much a life coach. But it wasn't before long I actually became a full-time coach, and I was earning at least $10,000 a month. And on that journey there, it's like, I should probably reintegrate into society. And so, so then I sort of transitioned from being a weirdo living in his car to being a weirdo center stage. So I went from being so then I became a popular weirdo, still a weirdo, but a popular weirdo, you would say. There you go.
You know what? That's just an adventure that you got to have for a while there, is what that was. And I really do love that. Good on you. Absolutely. You had the beach there. That's pretty rockin' rad. There's plenty of people now that are just trying to get in a van or a car and just hang out by the beach and not be tied down to a property.
Yeah. So I did van life before it was a thing. So there you go.
Right? You started the trend without even realizing it.
I wish that I had heaps of money. I should have started a van life YouTube channel. I don't know. There's heaps of them now. So there you go.
There's heaps of them now.
There's heaps of them now, but you know what? That's right. Your particular flavor is something that people still need. So you could still do it.
Yeah.
What an incredible insight.
And just quickly bring LinkedIn into it. So long story short, some years later, when Microsoft bought LinkedIn, one of my friends from Microsoft said, Ed, if you want, we'll set it free, no charge, we'll certify you on LinkedIn. So Ed, if you, we'll certify you on LinkedIn for free. And I did that. And I fell in love with LinkedIn so much. About a year later, we became LinkedIn specialists. So sort of moved away from the marketing coaching and just focused on LinkedIn and business networking. And here I am today talking to you amazing winners. So I'm so honored to.
You're too sweet. We're so happy to have you here. This is just so much fun for us. And sorry, Murray, go ahead. I think you had another question that you wanted to jump in on before I just keep getting pixie excited and fly off.
Just a great insight, Ed, and I'm sure for our audience and your audience, the insightfulness of feeling that for themselves is going to be impactful and yet paramount. You're very connected as we've discovered here, and for good reason. So with that reason, I guess the most accommodating question now is, in the mental magic that you spread, how do you infuse this deep coaching and this experience that you have into these funnels, into these environments, and into these people, based off of what you've gone through and what you've shared with us so far, that that's allowed you to have that a little bit of a internal peak, you know? Like you said, you've rode the wave while being low. So you know what it's like to be in that dual space. How do you do that? How do you hold that space now for yourself and still show up for everybody else energetically?
A great question. I think the thing is, and Haleigh and I were having this conversation. Love your work, Haleigh. To me, the biggest thing is no judgment. So when you're listening to someone, no judgment. So be it, you don't get angry at what they say. You don't get sad. You don't even get happy at what they say, right? You maintain a level of neutrality with people and no judgment. Because what happens to me is a lot of people, at least half of our clients, when they approach us and work with us, and we appreciate it, about half of them are ashamed about something. It's something they're ashamed about, right? Very ashamed about. And I actually invite them to tell me all about it, right? And as they tell me about it, I sort of compete with them saying, doesn't matter what you've done, I've made bigger mistakes than you. So I have this competition to the bottom with people, right? So there's not many things, some things are, but most people will have a race to the bottom competition that I usually win. Like, Ed, this and this happened to me. Well, I'm more of a loser than you. So we have this funny race to the bottom, right? And what it does is it kind of gets people to accept what's happened to them. Yeah. So here's a funny example. One time years ago, I was running this meetup, right? And so it was really funny back in the day. And what happened was I was in front of about 80 people at a WeWork in City CBD, and I said in the room, I'm the biggest loser there is here. No one's a bigger loser as me. And then one of the guys who got up and said, Ed, you're wrong. I'm more of a loser than you. No, I said, no, you're a winner. I'm the bigger loser. So we had this funny fight of who's the biggest loser. And I won by proving I'm the biggest loser in the room. So it's that humor in terms of, okay, so your marriage might have ended, you lost all your money, your kids hate you, you got in a car accident, whatever happened to you, right? It's okay because, you know, I'm not here to judge you on what happened to you now. The question is, in the here and now, where are we going from here? So there's that real clean slate, that real, look, line in the past, what's happened's happened. What can we do now to turn everything around? So it's called being future focused. So I'm not here to judge or condemn anyone, far from it. I'm here to help you draw a line in the sand and say where to from here. Because the thing is, you can redeem yourself. Like I used to carry a lot of shame and guilt about, oh, I was homeless, I made this mistake, I did all that. As far as I'm concerned, I've redeemed myself. You know, it's sort of, you know, you redeem yourself through your hard work and success. So we all have regrets and shame. But what I say to anyone watching is, there's a good chance that I've probably got more to regret in life than you do. There's a good chance of that. But whether I do or not, right? Don't worry about regrets or shame. Draw a line in the sand, and then where to from here? How are you going to improve things? How are you going to help people around you? And if you've made a bunch of mistakes, how can you rectify those mistakes? What can you do about it to set your rights wrong? You may not be able. Maybe there's nothing you can do about it. Maybe there is something you can do about it. It's time to look within and see what you can do to help other people.
Fantastic.
I love that.
That is just beautiful. Look inside. Definitely the time for it. It is definitely the time for it.
Totally.
It's collectively the time for it. And that's like a whole bigger conversation, isn't it? We can, you know, certainly delve into that. I do appreciate your perspective, though, the very sort of unconditional approach. You know, for as much as people do have those conversations about unconditional self-love or love for others, right? Sometimes it can become a little bit lip service, and especially when you're on a space like LinkedIn, you kind of have to discern a little bit between the people who present that energy and the people who are that energy in what they're doing, right? So can you maybe talk a little bit about, in your experience that you have had, as much as there are those things that we as humans just tend to feel ashamed about or kind of get caught up in that sort of, you know, blaming myself or just stuck in that what the past is. Can you maybe talk about how recognizing that different sort of vibrational frequency, that energy, has actually helped you to move forward? Like that there was a value to being in that space and understanding what that was, that can help you help others in a bigger way than you would maybe have been able to if you hadn't made all those choices or quote unquote mistakes.
It's funny. One of the biggest things, and I was quite ashamed about this, and it took me a while to say it publicly, but you know, I've always had a bit of an eating disorder. I've always had a real problem with binge eating, right? So it's never been It's never been girls, gambling, or smoking. For me, food's always been my problem, right? Whole life, right? And during the whole sort of lockdowns, I put on like 30 kilos, went nuts, right? Just went absolutely crazy. And I've lost most of it. But what was interesting is that with my sort of my eating disorder, I was very ashamed about that. I was in complete denial, very ashamed. And eventually I came public with it, right? And as I started talking about it, I started getting all these messages. Me too. Me too. Thank you, Ed. Thank you for talking about this. Thank you for bringing this topic up, right? And some of the people who said, I've got the same problem, you wouldn't have picked it, right? They said, yeah, Ed, I had big problems in my childhood. Or, hey, Ed, when my marriage went kaput, I had big problems. Or, hey, Ed, when I lost my job, I had big problems. So it was interesting. So I went from a shameful, guilty type of energy to more of an empowerment type of energy, and that, okay, so what I did, I'm not too proud of, but I need to own this. And as you said before, you're all about shadow work. I'm all into that, all owning your shadow. It's like, I had this eating disorder and what I did was wrong, and I'm very regretful about it, but here I am dealing with it. And if you've got an addiction to or the same problem, you're not going to get judgment from me, far from it, because the world might judge you, but I certainly may not, because addictions are hard, as a guy, different people have different addictions. Addictions can be very hard to work with. And a lot of people can be very dismissive of addictions. They're very much, oh, well, you just lack discipline. You're a loser. You're this and that, right? Doing the whole alpha male Andrew Tate thing, right? Which I totally condemn, right? But it's sort of a matter of, when you move on from shame to acceptance, and then you move from acceptance to empowerment. Okay, so here's what I've done. I'm not proud of it, but how can I help other people? How can I help myself and help others? And I think it's a very useful conversation to have. I was going to ask, what do you two think? You guys are the shadow workers, not me. What do you guys think on this one?
Marie Angel, do you want to start?
Thank you, Haleigh. I appreciate that. Yeah, look, Ed, I simply agree. I think everyone agrees, being in a space of shame really, really, really refrains our ability to have humility, which is one of our highest qualities in this experience as a human being. Alongside love and authenticity and compassion, they will share the same sort of playing ground and floor. So when we're being withheld, it's usually comes at quite a cost, not just to ourselves, but those around us. So if we can provide environments of unconditionality, like you've just said, where people can come to that point of drawing the line in the sand, not only do we give them the chance of reflection and release, we give ourselves the chance to transmute that energy on their behalf. You seem to have a lot of experience with that from what we've understood here. And I think that is probably the biggest thing that I'm seeing in this conversation today, is that if we support each other, there really is no shame.
Totally.
If we create the environment to be ourselves, we all flourish together.
There's a lot of unconditionality that I think we have sort of unlearned as humans, if that's maybe the way to say it. There's, in this creating a space, that's part of what we do here with Franki's Podcast Network. That's why I started podcasting, because I wanted a space where people could present themselves and their story and where they are, because I think every story is important. I think that everyone's got something to share that someone is looking for, right? So the experiences that you've had, while they might be difficult, they're a gift to someone else, because it allows them to see that, oh, we are all really the same in this human collective. You've felt the things I've felt, and you've been in the places I've been, and I'm not so alone in the things I think I'm alone in. And when you can hold that sort of safe space for people, you really do allow them to release those kinds of things that are heavy or that we as humans have labeled as difficult. And you can kind of start to get into a space in a conversation where we recognize that whether something is a challenge or shameful or good, or like, they're all constructs or definitions that are subjective to us as individuals and as collectives and cultures and groups of people or groups of friends. So, what are maybe some of your thoughts on that? Just the unconditionality as an individual that you have towards others, and how that really does build a space in a community where you can thrive because there's not so many labels that say this is good and this is bad, and we have to agree on that.
Yeah. And you bring up a topic that I'm right into, and I know Murray and I had this great chat, and Murray and I said a bit of context for our viewers. Murray and I actually caught up face-to-face at our Brisbane meetup. So it was so good meeting you, Murray, and our Brisbane. And we had a very non-politically correct chat, a chat that we cannot talk about publicly because the establishment doesn't like free thinking. And what was interesting about our chat is that it comes down to individuality. Right? Individuality, because one of the big things that I'm quite into is the idea of individualism, right? And society is not into that, right? So if you look at the zeitgeist, talking about individuality is a real contrarian idea because society is all about labeling you. Are you male or female? Are you gender non-binary? Are you an Arab? Are you an Aussie? Are you an American? Are you a lefty or are you a right winger? Do you love Trump? Do you hate Trump? And so what happens is society wants to put all these labels on it to try and control us. They want to categorize us as much as possible, right? And the solution for that is individualism. So, for example, right, I'm an Arab Australian guy married to a Chinese woman, right? And a lot of people will talk to us about racial sort of issues. And I'm with Morgan Freeman on this one, for example. Morgan Freeman thinks that the cure for racism is stop talking about it, right? Just treat people as people. What a great idea, right? And to me, the solution for a lot of society's problems is dropping the labels and treating people as people. So when I talk to someone, I drop all the labels. I just look at them as a unique person, and I want to hear and understand their story and where they're coming from. And when you sort of get beyond the labels, all the crazy sloganeering, every person is unique and different. When you get to understand a person's experiences, it's really good. And I saw this great, I didn't completely agree with it, but I saw this really, I got to dig it up. Someone asked me to dig it up the other day. I saw this really good meme going around on LinkedIn, right? And I had this person who tripped over on the pavement and they were crying about their hurt knee or whatever, right? And there was this person behind them pointing at them saying, "You're a crybaby and just get up," right? And what it had above this person, sort of grey hidden writing, was all the traumas they're carrying. So in other words, visually you just see this person, but behind them, you're seeing this whole person's traumatic life all coming together. And that's one of the big things, we all carry a lot of trauma with us. And that brings me up with another meme I got to dig up as well. It's a generational trauma meme. And basically, I think it's the grandfather, dad and all that, right? Basically, it has all the ghosts of all these people yelling at each other and going down the chain. And then it has the dad at the end holding a Captain America shield, blocking the generational trauma, giving his son a thumbs up. So I think that's a big part of it as well, individualism and also letting go of trauma. But the thing is, I'm against labeling. Again, being an individual these days is very difficult. Society doesn't want us to think this way. What do you guys think? Have I watched The Matrix too much, or am I smoking something I shouldn't? Do you agree or disagree, Murray and Haleigh? What do you think?
Have you watched? You can never watch The Matrix too much because
Matrix too much.
No,
Matrix 3 was trash. Matrix 1 was awesome. They should have stopped there. Number 2 was a bad Star Trek episode. Number 3 totally contradicted the point of The Matrix. Sorry about that rant over.
Establishment saga.
No, listen, I would love to have you on our Day of Fun podcast again so we can just straight up talk about movies. I would do that for an hour with you, no questions asked. Absolutely, I would absolutely do that.
Sure.
No, I think that there is a kind of interesting paradigm when you think about things like The Matrix and how people kind of play into that. Reality is a simulation run by evil overlords kind of thing, right? And I think the thing that comes to me from pop culture is from Rick and Morty. Negative visualization, Jerry, says a lot about where you're at. Yeah. And I really do kind of think it's true, right? If you see the world as being a sort of Matrix kind of paradigm, well, you're going to find evidence for it because that's what you believe. And that kind of gets into that space of creating your own reality via mindset and thoughts, right? That Marie and I do love to delve into. Marie, I'll let you jump in and share your thoughts there.
Spirit fingers for everyone at home.
No, that is kind of my thought, that it really is the energy you come from that makes the reality around you, the people around you, whether the networking works, whether the sales work, right? If you have that energy and perspective of being open to learning new things, especially about, and that's something that someone else said once on LinkedIn, the best way to get people to take an interest in you is to take an interest in other people. And it's true, right? If you take an interest in other people and learn about what they're doing, you find a lot more ways that you can collaborate and thrive together, right? Rather than just being selling your own, this is what I do, right? So the energy you come from of wanting to be the sort of inverse of the matrix, right? Like what if reality is actually being controlled by overlords who love us all a lot and are really trying to help us to let go of those labels that we're hanging on to? What if that's the paradigm?
Yeah. What do you think, Amazing Murray?
Amazing Murray. Thanks, Ed.
Or Marvelous Murray. That sounds better.
Marvelous
Marvelous Murray, the 2 M's. Sounds better.
Well, look,
There you go. I love it.
in my small journey of being Murray Angel, I've incited, if you will, intellectually and spiritually, that the individualism that you just commented on, so important right now. I want to use the same reference that you used just before about Morgan Freeman. If we just stop talking about it, it'll go away.
Yeah.
The same thing, if we stop believing in certain things, they'll just dissolve and go away. So collectively, we all, to a degree, believe that there's tyranny and that we're being overlorded. But we don't have to believe that anymore. That's not necessarily easy to process, and there's a lot of conversation around that, why that is that way. But fundamentally, if we are accessing that very core light within us, the individual light that we are, that we bring to this world, regardless of the shame, regardless of the tethers, and regardless of the history that's following you, we still move forward. We're still having our emotions, which is our energy, and it's in motion. So this is an experience and you're present for it. You can run from it all you like, but it's still going to show up at your doorstep every day. So if we focus on the individualism and highlight that within ourselves, then we start focusing on things that we like to do, that make us happy. And I've known this my whole life, just from my own experience. Whenever I'm in line with something that I'm passionate for, or around people that I like being around, that have similar values and want the same desires and interest in life, I give much more freely. Self-sacrifice inverses itself naturally. And that is something that you don't see when we are collectively placed in these quadrants and groups and labels and sectors. We get entangled, dismantled, and that perfect light of ours doesn't get to express itself. And that's why I agree with that, and that's what I have to say about that.
No, fascinating. I gotta say, I love where you guys go, and I love Morgan Freeman too. It's on YouTube. I might share it on LinkedIn. It's have you seen the clip, the Morgan Freeman clip, where they talk about Morgan Freeman's cure for racism? Stop talking about it. He reacts almost in an angry, irritated way. Morgan Freeman reacts. I'm going to dig up that clip and share it on LinkedIn.
Do dig it up.
Non-conforming? Oh, that's amazing.
There we go.
No, I do love it. The individualism, I think, is also, it's where you have to start. You can't start with anyone but you, right? Because you're the only one that you have any control over.
Yeah.
And your perception, you are the only person who has control over your perception. You can offer someone a different perspective and you can give them an opportunity to see things differently, but you can't force them to, right? So that's something that, and I'm sure you deal with this again a lot in the LinkedIn space and in the networking spaces, kind of discerning between energies that align with you and where you're trying to go and the energies that don't. Can you maybe talk a little bit about some of the things that you might even help with your coaching services when it comes to that kind of thing? And maybe a little bit when you're in kind of a transitional space with things, right? The ability to recognize when a situation or circumstance maybe doesn't suit where you're trying to go anymore, and how do you navigate that when you do care so much for people around you and you still care for whatever circumstance may not be aligned to you anymore?
Yeah, totally. I think a lot of it comes down to is how responsible someone is. So you'll meet people that are fantastically responsible, very stoic in that, hey, this is something I'm doing, this is something I'm dealing with, right? And then you'll meet with people who are really more in victim mentality, and they're usually quite lazy. And this is the biggest thing that I've learned. People who are in victim mentality are usually quite lazy people. People who are quite ambitious are quite responsible people. And I see this all the time. I'll meet people that who I don't have a lot of respect for, right? Who basically are in victim mode, and they're just blaming everyone around them for their problems. So one of my really good friends, right, who I really adore, they're too much of a victim, and I actually got stuck into them the other day, right? And I'll give you an example why. I've said to this person many times, they want to start their own business. And I said, okay, you should start posting daily on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Insta, right? It's free. Take you 10 minutes, right? And they just won't do it. They just won't do it. Time after time after time. Every few months, they come back to me, basically complaining about all their problems to me. And I've told them how to solve it. They won't do it. And they'll open the conversation saying, look, Ed, I know you told me this and I didn't do it, but I need some help here. And I say to them, look, and this is where I sort of laid it on the line for him last week. I said, look, I work way harder than you, right? I work way more hours. I do 7 days a week. I got to do stuff. I got to pay. I'm married with kids, of a mortgage and all that. Welcome to Sydney. Right? This person doesn't have any of that. I said, I work way harder than you, and I got way more responsibilities in my life, and you don't hear me sounding like you. And the moment I said that, they started to crack a little bit, right? They started to crack a little bit, and they're like, yeah, Ed. And I said, it's not a cool look, right? And what I think is, and I said this to their face, I said, look, what I think is really going on is I think you're a bit lazy. I really do. I think you're just a bit lazy, and you're using this victimhood as an excuse to get out of work. You know what they turned around and said to me? I agree with you, Ed. And I like that. They conceded their position. Now, the reason, and it's not about Ed being right. It's not about me right and you wrong, not at all. But the thing that frustrates me, and I see a lot, is a lot of people will walk up to me and complain about how their life and business isn't working. I tell them how to fix it, but they're just not that interested. They're lazy. So I think a lot of people out there are really, really lazy, and that's the reason why their life isn't working. So laziness is something which I really, really dislike. Really, really dislike. And if I get a hint that someone's lazy, my nice guy act goes out the window, and I start folding my arms and getting slightly annoyed, right? So, but I deal with that a lot. Laziness, big problem. People just don't want to work that hard. They want to blame me for all their problems, which is nice, but they don't want to do any work. So laziness, I think, is a big cancer in our society. And laziness is hidden as saying, so this person would say, well, Ed, I need mental health time. I need me time. They'd say all this sort of stuff. Yeah, so do I, but I'm still doing work. So, yeah, I think state-sanctioned laziness is an epidemic these days, and people not taking responsibility. That really annoys me. When I hear that, Ed's nice guy routine goes out the window. So there you go. That's one thing I've been dealing with a lot lately, which has been kind of ironically funny and tragic.
You can clearly, that's definitely understandable given your environment and your professional responsibility.
There you go. Well said. Well said.
I think, we are in an interesting liminal space as a society in a lot of ways, right? So when we are experiencing, laziness, or I would say apathy, right?
Yeah,
because I think that's a bit where we're kind of at, is that there is a lot of noise and there are a lot of things going on. And I think for a lot of people, it becomes a state of, I'd rather be apathetic than overwhelmed by all of it, right? And sometimes I can understand that people get into a space where you might fall into those ruts again. And that's kind of where Murray and I have that, the shadow work and the kind of like Reiki and the things that we do, because it does happen. It happens to the best of us. And that person who admitted to you that they were being lazy, I think that's something that is common. It's not that people don't recognize this or that thing that they could be shifting or changing, but what they can't figure out is why they continue to choose the old negative feedback loop, right? And I think some of that is really just that we as a collective are still trying to find our footing in being more compassionate and in being more community-based and in being a little bit less sort of focused on the bigger picture. We kind of had a little bit of this conversation before the show too, right? Kind of the idea of a society that needs like big governments to help run it, or a society that's maybe more based on communities. And I think to some degree that we're headed back in that direction where the power comes back to smaller communities, comes back to the individuals, comes back to the people. I think people are ready for that energetically and they want it, but I think they don't really know how to get there, right? And they don't really necessarily always know how to get to knowing themselves and their own authentic passions enough to be able to follow that thread, to be able to have not the motivation, but the desire to keep going because they're passionate. So to that end, when you're working with people, what are some of the things that you might do or some of the things you might suggest to people when you're trying to get to that inner you and to really amplify your authentic essence and to really find that spark in you that makes you want to do, that makes you want to get out of bed in the morning, right? How do you help people find their way back to that?
So it comes down to, I find it comes down to understanding someone's motives. So one person I was having this type of like the laziness conversation with, what really motivated them was proving their parents wrong, right? So they wanted to become independently successful and show their parents how they made it, right? And I'm like, well, good. You don't want to make it, if you fail, you make your parents correct. The moment I said that, they were like this. They were not happy, right?
They checked out.
They were not happy, but I was still correct, right? And I said, look, at the end of the day, right, if you get lazy and fail, you're going to make your parents correct. You're never going to hear the end of it. If you become massively successful, you get the benefit of proving your parents wrong and becoming successful at the same time. How does that sound? And that really worked. And in another person, and I'm not joking this person, they're an old friend of mine that has a huge problem with alcoholism, right? So again, I'm not judging. I mean, I did what they do with alcohol. I did the same thing with food, right? So I can't jump on a high horse on this one, but huge problem with alcoholism, right? And they came to me with this weird statement saying, Ed, I want to go on this anti-alcohol retreat and it's going to cure all my problems. And I said, no, it's not. I said, you're just going to go on a retreat and come back and just hit the bottle shop again. You're not going to change, right? But the way I was able to get through this person saying, you know, why do you want to get off alcohol? Like, what's really going on? And she had a husband that she really loved, but the marriage broke down due to alcoholism. She goes, Ed, I actually want to win my husband back, right? I think I can do it. And I'm like, okay, that's a good goal. And I said, why don't you talk to him and say, hey, look, I'm really sorry about what happened. I want to knock the bottle and get our relationship back. And she went and did that. And her husband said, they weren't divorced yet, separate. Her ex-husband to be said, okay, let's try and sort things out. So, I mean, the battle is still going. But my point is that you got to understand what motivates people, and then you tap into their motivation. So why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do this sort of thing? So in my case, I get asked all the time, Ed, what motivates you to work so hard? Oh, quite a few motivations. I love my family. I love being successful. I like big houses and nice cars and all that. But also, too, I love creating change as well. I love people, as you were saying before, I like people find their own sense of individualism. And just reacting to what you said earlier, I couldn't agree with you more, Haleigh and Murray, in terms of the power shifting away from the big governments and back to the communities, because we've seen how our governments have failed us. I think collectively, we've seen how our big governments have failed us, and we've seen all the corruption and the crimes they commit behind the scenes come to the surface as well. So I think people are seeing, whether you're left, and this is the thing I like, whether you're left or right, and this is the thing I say to people, the whole left and right political term, that's put in by overlords and controls, because instead of, while the left and right are fighting each other, we're not looking up. That's where the real problem is, right? So I always say to people, look, I'm a right winger. I love Trump and Elon and all that. That's fine. But the real problem is people trying to control. So I couldn't agree with you more. Power shifting back to the individual and back to the community. And a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people don't like people taking personal responsibility. They hate it. They hate it. I get criticized. I've had death threats recently for my political viewpoint. So a lot of people are willing to resort to violence to stop people like us thinking this way. It's crazy.
Well, that kind of, again, gets back into the labeling, right?
Mm.
Like, if you didn't have a label that upset you, would you have that kind of vehement reaction to something? And it's, again, that I don't know that people really take a pause to give themselves the opportunity to decide that maybe there's a third option, right? I mean, y'all, Baskin Robbins doesn't have just chocolate and vanilla. They got like all the flavors. Why should we not have that many options when it comes to the people that are leadership positions in our communities and our societies, right? And so I think that that is something that people need to, I mean, even just break away from that paradigm and that idea of there only being two sides. Well, no, there's multiple sides. There's much nuance to every subject that you can have a conversation about or have a perspective on. And it's all valid because everyone does come from a certain kind of experience with all that baggage that you can't see. So their perspective is valid. All truths are true to every individual in the now, right? Anything that is true for you, there's a valid reason why you came to that truth. If we can have more conversations openly with each other about our personal truths, again, in safe spaces where there is not judgment for whatever that perspective may be, I think it does give us the opportunity to kind of open up more of the trust of one another that is more required and more kind of, I think, thirsted after by people right now. That really does help build that sense of community that we need to get back to. And I think maybe, and maybe talk about that a little bit. Marie, give us your thoughts. But is there
Definitely,
maybe
I would
something?
like to hear about that as well. We all know that mistrust leads to, generally, we just covered it, abuse. Mistrust of labels, mistrust of self, mistrust of environment, mistrust of establishment, mistrust of energy being the primordial. So yeah, I'd like to speak more on that, the mistrust aspect and how that transfers into that victim mentality that we've covered here today, and how we can support that as we do, and how we clearly become these channels, which is quite clearly the observation here today from the conversation, that you're a channel, Ed, naturally. And you do that naturally. Whether you are choosing to be aware of that or not, that is a high level position you assigned yourself.
Yeah.
And you do a good job of it because you do it from a heart center of unconditionality based on the shame and the events that you say you transmuted. So there's real life experience involved in that. And if we continue to show that to people and show up as our authentic self, I think these spaces are going to permeate and we'll experience these interconnected communities and the power thriving with us, the people, the individualism, and our light shining again. I definitely do see that being the way forward after coming to your event.
There you go.
When I came to your event, I not only felt the synergy there, but I felt the ambition of connection. I felt the happiness of people being able to come to an environment and be their authentic self, taking all the leadership, all the money, and all the positive attributes of excelling in life as we're all chasing. It's something about that, something about having that space and having that environment to show up to may be the very first step someone's looking for to get to apathy, to come out of victimhood and to rise into leadership. And through people like yourself, me and Haleigh, being amazing, awesome beings, I see that being the path forward naturally for all of us.
There you go. Well, you're the amazing leaders here. I mean, at the end of the day, Haleigh, you're the amazing leader. You're the one who reached out to me saying, do you want to come on my podcast, right? And I normally say no to these things, but your energy hit me like a truck and I loved it. I thought, I like this Haleigh chick. I'm so saying yes. I don't know who you are, but sign me up. So Haleigh, you're like a Jedi Knight. You will do the
I
podcast.
accept. I will take that. Thank you. Jedi Knight with a light, and my light sword is a lasso, and I just pull you into the podcast.
So you're more Gal Gadot. You're more Wonder Woman with the lasso, not a Jedi Knight.
Right here. That's what it is.
Yeah. Total Wonder Woman, not a Jedi Knight. Isn't she an Amazonian? I can't remember. Isn't Wonder Woman the last of her kind? I can't remember the storyline. I think
I'm too short to be an Amazonian, but like I will take that big energy. Like I will definitely accept that big energy.
Okay. Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman energy. I have to look into Wonder Woman lore. From memory, she's the last of her kind, something like that. I can't remember. So there you go.
You know what? I'll take that. Last of my kind, one of a kind. Close enough.
There we go. So after this, I'm going to write an article about Linda Carter and Gal Gadot and unpack Wonder Woman lore. There you go. Good for LinkedIn.
Oh, yes, good for LinkedIn. More fun times on there needs to be had.
And I just realized I'm talking about Linda Carter. It shows how old I am. Oh, scary.
No, stop it. That's the beautiful thing of the age of the internet is that everyone has access to all the information from just forever. So, my kid's sister, who is a sophomore in college, has all of my references from like Ferris Bueller's Day Off and all those kind of things.
Oh,
yeah.
Classic. That wasn't that Matthew Broderick's breakout role, Ferris Bueller? Was it Matthew Broderick?
Matthew Broderick, yeah. I believe so, yeah.
There we go. Sorry, anyway, I know we're not here to talk about movies, but we should do a movie podcast. We'll talk about Linda Carter.
We're going to. I'm excited.
I thought we established that 25 minutes ago. We were going to come back.
There we go. We'll talk about Ricardo Montalban, David Hasselhoff, Linda Carter, Faye Dunaway.
This is the example where we want to show the guests. This is when we get to these liminal spaces through time, you get to just be yourself. And when we can be ourselves, we have the best conversations. We talk about the most fun things. And we share passions and interests that really excite us and light us up.
Totally.
I do. I think that it's going to be such a fun time when we get together for the movie conversation because we'll find ways to parallel the movie things to all of the sales and the networking items that you have because that's the magic of what we do. It's called synergy, y'all, and we're masters of it. And we're so thrilled to be here. I do want to ask you, Ed, what are you looking forward? What are you really excited about in the world of the networking that you're in and in all of these different environments that you create with your events? What are you really excited about and what's your vision for the future?
Yeah, so my vision, call me an anti-visionary, I only think 12 months ahead. Beyond 12 months, I can't see much ahead. So my limited human brain works in 12-month blocks. So I can only talk up to 12 months. After that is more of an active fantasy. But in the here and now, my own vision is it's really, for me personally, it's meeting more people, traveling to more places, and helping more people in several ways. And the way I like to help people is in two ways. One is me directly helping them, plus connecting with them with people as well. Because one, secondary superpower you would say that I've realized I have is, yes, I'm delightful at helping people, but much like yourself, Haleigh and Murray, I'm also great at connecting with people, each other, to help them solve each other's problems. What's interesting in our business network, everyone's working together. I have no idea everyone's working together. So we got hundreds of clients, stuff we look after. So I'm kind of vague these days. And everyone's working together doing all this cool shit, which I really admire. So for me, it's helping people directly, but better connecting them so that they all win more and more. And the reason why I like this background is A, I took this photo and I like this photo because I took it. But B, I just love, hey, Lassie, looks great, but I just love what this photo is all about. A bunch of, in this case, ladies, but a bunch of people coming together to help each other. So there we go. That's why I like this
Total
photo.
Empowerment. Total
that
empowerment.
Sums up what I'm about. There you go.
Total empowerment. I do love that. No, and I do appreciate, again, people, not just that they're women, that they're people. It doesn't have to be about the gender label. We're all humans. We're all of the same species. I mean, guys, it's us and the animals, but they're also connected to us, and we've kind of forgotten that too, right?
There we go.
And the plants.
That's a whole conversation for another podcast we can have.
And the overlord robots.
I couldn't agree with you. We need real economy, real ecology, real animal protection, not just simple bumper sticker lines. You know what I mean? So that's a whole problem we got in Australia.
That's a whole podcast we could have about how we need to all kind of get back to nature a little bit in the sense of remembering that we're a part of it. And I think that you are on the right path, though, because you are creating an ecosystem of very awesome people and interconnecting people and projects and just wonderful energies. And we do so appreciate that there are people like you out there putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, being honest, and also just being willing to support other people in their journeys without judgment, because I think that is so very needed for so many of us today.
And above all else, just being an awesome human being. Choosing to show up authentically and share your light for others to see.
Love you, winners. Great people. And to the people watching, you're awesome. If you're watching this right now, something awesome is going to happen to you in the next 12 hours. So I bless you with luck. The luck shot.
Blessed you are. You are blessed.
Bless you all. Oh, can we make that just like, that could be a regular segment that I would love to do, where we just like bless the audience. Bless you all.
Bless your heart. Bless your heart.
Bless your hearts for joining us today for this wonderful. That's right. There you go. Bring it out, Marie.
You can nail the accent. Where are you from, Haleigh? Where are you from?
I'm from South Dakota, but I did live in North Carolina for a bit. So I got a little bit used to hearing that more kind of Southern drawl, but I kind of have channeled my own characters from my books, and that's where I've kind of developed it. Murray Angel's been around to hear Bernie get a little bit more refined, shall we say.
Years ago, I lived in St. Louis, Missouri for 3 months on a work. Loved it, right? Loved it. And I would just sit there and work on my Midwestern accent. There was a lot of unfortunately, I just sound like Mr. Garrison from South Park when I say it. So there we go. So I tend to sound more like Mr.
Garrison. No, but he's great. I love South Park. You couldn't have picked a better show. If you want to connect with me on movies, game over. We're best friends now. He's South Park.
Come on. About helping out all these kids. There we go. So there we go.
I love it. No, that's so good. Edward Zia, we are going to have you back for more podcasts. Your energy is just so magnificent, and I just so appreciate you for coming on. Murray Angel, I'm going to give you the opportunity too to just sing Ed's praises one more time.
Ed, thank you so much for joining us. For all of the people that follow you, that have shown up to support this light today. What an honor. What an honor to experience the energy of this man. What an honor to know that he's in our Australian community, shining so brightly. I've found you now, Ed. You'll see a lot more of me. You'll see a lot more of Haleigh. And we hope to be seen by a lot more people.
And all the girls at the Brisbane meetup thought you were cute, Murray. So just keep that in mind.
Well, as well, they should. Look at him.
Level of cuteness about me, but I tend to be modest with that. Thank you for the reminder. I appreciate it.
Love you, winners.
So much love to you, Ed. Thank you so very much for joining us. And everyone who joined us today for the live and is checking this out later, do check out the links in the comments so you can find Ed on LinkedIn and get connected with him, because trust me, you want to be in our buddy Ed's energy. You absolutely do.
We will be back.
Can't wait.
Thank you, Ed, for joining us. Thanks, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Franki's Open Mic, and we will see you next time.